Welcome to the third installment of the Fall 2017 UC Santa Barbara Innovator Stories series. I'm John Greathouse, and you can follow me on Twitter at John Greathouse. We have with us tonight Jonathan Brown. Jonathan is a highly creative SoCal native. Excited to have him here because he combines sort of professional managerial expertise and experience with an incredible passion, entrepreneurial drive, and vision. So sometimes people have the drive and the vision, they can't manage a team of one, and sometimes people are really great managers, they have no vision, they have no entrepreneurial spirit. He brings both of those together. He's logged over 13 years of experience generating revenue, solving problems, and managing high-profile, some people might say challenging relationships with some pretty well-known people. And doing all of that, he's been supporting some of the most influential global music and lifestyle brands. So he's worked with a bunch of different companies, including Converse, Delta Airlines, Forever 21, Whole Foods, and a bunch more. His current focus is his role as the co-founder of the music tech startup Partnerly. Partnerly is simplifying the creation and management of partnerships between brands, so some of those brands I mentioned, and music influencers. And they're doing it through software. They're doing it through what's called a SaaS platform, or a software as a service platform. So in the role of co-founder, you kind of do everything, right? You take out the trash, you hire people, you clean the dishes, right? You're doing it all. He's drawing upon, as he's washing the dishes at 10 o'clock at night, he's drawing upon his experience as a two-time Grammy-nominated multi-platinum record producer. He's worked with a bunch of amazing, highly talented people, including Pink, Eminem, and the Black Eyed Peas, to name just a few. He earned his degree in music production and engineering from Boston's prestigious Berklee School of Music. And that's actually the Berklee that's hardest to get into, not the Berklee up north, but the Berklee School of Music is actually more difficult to get into. He earned that degree back in 2003. So despite trying to get a company going, despite all of the energy and effort you have to put into your startup, Jonathan agreed to come up from LA today, brave that traffic, which is a nightmare. No one should have to go through that. We really appreciate him giving us all his time, and I'm really looking forward to his insights. Let's welcome him to our class.
Thank you so much.
Good to see you. All right, man, you got a lot to live up to now.
Jeez, that was an amazing intro. I wish I could remember that for next.
Where was the backflip?
Oh man, I mean, there's a lot going on here, so give me a minute.
All right. On your outro, we'll have you do the backflip.
Yeah, sure. I'll do a spinning and, yeah.
Rub your stomach and pat your head. So you have an interesting career. One of the reasons why I wanted to get you in front of the many people that'll see this online, as well as the students in this room. And one thing I really love about your career is you've done what I tell the students they should strive for, which is find something you love, find something you're passionate about, and then figure out how to make money doing it. Because it's one thing to be a starving artist. It may sound romantic, it's not. It's another thing to maybe take a job that you really aren't happy with, but you make a lot of money. If you can combine those two, really build a career where it doesn't feel like work, or at least most of the time it doesn't feel like work.
Sure.
So feel like you've done that. If you haven't, be honest and just tell me.
No, it's work and passion, of course. Yeah. So some of the times it's more work, some of the times it's more.
Totally. Every day is not a carnival.
It's not.
But it can be more fun than not.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's talk a little bit about how you've gone. How you got to where you are now. When you were growing up, did you dream of being a rap star, rock star, musician? Obviously, music was a passion for you. Was that sort of your goal, and then it morphed into getting behind the desk instead of in front of the desk?
Yeah, I mean, I grew up in a really musical household. So, I mean, from the age of 5 or 6 years old, I was playing guitar while my dad was playing drums in the garage, right? So it's like that was sort of like I think the foundation of just having fun playing music, and it was just something that I always liked, and my friends coming in and out of the house, and typical garage band type of scene.
So was your dad a frustrated professional musician, or was he just?
No, I mean, some might say, but no, he played drums in college, and then got into tour management, and then ended up getting out of the business and realizing that, he had his limit as far as a player, and then just was always just supportive of being really creative at a young age, just have some fun, make some music, and stuff like that. So
I mean, that sounds like a great experience for a father and a son to just go out there
Yeah, it was just jam sessions all the time and stuff
Right.
like that. So as far as like the question that you asked, it's, there came to a point, like as in everybody's life, where it goes, okay, well now what? I was studying privately, and the joke is I never even got into jazz band in high school, which is a true story. But I was always like studying privately, and I was studying, I was just as much into technology at the time as I was into music, and I just decided like, okay, what can I wake up to every day? I was programming and stuff like that I was also kind of interested in high school when I was a kid. I was like, I like it, but I just don't love it like I love music, right? So, I just sort of made the commitment after applying to schools. Like when I got it, I tried to, there's UC schools and such, and I got into Berkeley, and I was like, I just don't want to, I just didn't want to live with any regrets. I was like, I just want to see how, it was really just, I want to see how good I am. That simple.
I think that's a very good mantra for anybody.
Like, how good am I?
Yeah.
Like, really, I just want to know.
You don't want to be that person sitting there.
I don't want to live with regret.
I could have got.
Yeah, I just don't want.
I got into Berkeley.
Yeah, I could have done that and this, and then, I had a supportive family, so that's.
So when they looked at that, they said, okay, UCSB, no way. Kidding. They saw the UCs and then they saw Berkeley. Was that a hard decision for them? Or?
Yeah, it was a really, really tough decision. It was a really tough decision. A lot of conversations, a lot of me having to literally build a case on if I were to go to school like that, what do I do then? Like what do I envision my career to be? It wasn't a you can go to Berkeley and be a jazz guitarist, which is what I wanted to do at the time. I just wanted to play jazz. That was it. It's like, but there was no that didn't fly. Mm-hmm. So it was like I always had a passion for records of just how they were made, learning about how they were made, making them myself. They were terrible, but like I tried, right? Mm-hmm. So I just really was interested in that. So that was.
You were sort of in that era when that was first becoming possible,
right?
Where you could actually, in the '70s, you could do it with a cassette player and make really bad music. But you were in that the beginning of the digital era where you could multi-track.
Yeah, it was right at the intersection. So it was literally, I got my friends' parents who had the 4 tracks and stuff like that. Like, this is how it's done. And then me online downloading at the time really slowly audio programs and being like, but I can do it this way. So it was so it was very like, it was an intersection for sure.
So for you, it sounds like the technology music was a natural intersection for a long time. It wasn't a left turn or a right turn. You were sort of always in that direction. So tell me a little bit back, 2003, were your contemporaries, your peers at Berkeley, were they thinking they were going to be these famous musicians or be in symphonies or what?
Yes.
Yeah, but that was their thing?
In 2003, when I was on the way out, I think everybody in a school like that thinks that they are it.
Yeah, really.
They are so self-centric of what they were going to do. And for me coming in there as someone that wanted to be a supporter of it, not necessarily the guy that's like in front of everybody, it was a little bit bizarre to look at.
When did you make that shift at Berkeley, or was it before you actually went, where you said, I'm going to be behind the board, I'm not going to be in front of the board?
It was at Berkeley. And I remember I was playing and I was around some really, really talented people at the time. And I remember I think I started. I wasn't accepted to the major.
Right.
I was in a heavily impacted major. There's like 50 people a year that get into it, so I had to go take some other major. And I remember when I finally got into it, it was just like it just felt so comfortable. There was like a comfort to just sitting in a studio that I think most people freaked out, and I was just like, oh, this is nice. Like I could see myself being in here every single day. This is awesome. So.
Well, I think that's a key to success in many ways, is having that self-awareness.
Sure.
Like maybe you have a dream to do X, but then over time, reality sort of sets in and you go, maybe X isn't really my dream, it's X plus Y. And,
yeah, I think
but not compromising, not saying to yourself, well, I can't do that, so I'm going to do this. It's just actually finding the one that's a better fit.
100%. I mean, that's really well said. Yeah. It's like you have an idea of what you think something's going to be. You try it. You get there. You go, what do you like? What do you not like? How long are you going to be there for? And then make a pivot. I mean, there's no. I just have always looked at things like, how do you know what it's like until you try it, really, versus studying something and then, you know, you just want to try as much as you can.
So I think it's hopefully already getting clear to folks that are...
That's my approach, yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's one of the reasons why I wanted to have you in this series, because I like that you found yourself in that way at a young age. And I also like that, I think people are kind of hearing it in your voice already and are getting to know you. You have a very high EQ. You have a very high emotional intelligence. And I think if you're going to work with some of these very well-known people that can go to their head, that, you know, that they can do no wrong, and you're trying to guide them on a musical journey and get the best work out of them without it becoming your record. And I mean, that's incredible. I mean, I can imagine that's difficult, to say the least.
Yeah, that's the game. That's the game, is how do you be a fly on the wall, and how do you tell somebody that's at that level that it sucks.
Like
that
beat that you just thought was awesome?
That you just sang that and it was not good and you need to do it. And that is 100% the job. That is 100% the job that I was doing I mean, I still do it, but like, that I think a lot of people don't really actually ask that question, which is like, what's that like? Yeah.
I've been in some studios. I managed a band for a while, and I've actually watched that process. I've never done what you've done by any means, but I've kind of watched that, and I'm like, wow, that person just completely got where they needed to get that person without bruising the ego or taking over or whatever. Do you have any, I don't know, kind of put you on the spot, but are there specific things that young people can learn from? Like, are there certain skills or things you do, or any tips you can, when they're in a high pressure situation with maybe someone with a big ego, what are some ways you just make that work?
It's a good question. Well, the first thing I had to realize is that when I'm in a high pressure environment with someone that is I look up to, even I've had situations where I'm just like, wow, this guy, you know, what am I doing in here? Is I always tell myself, like, especially even like this situation right here, right? Like, I don't know, I'm in front of a lot of people. Like, that's nerve-wracking, right? I just say, I just firmly believe that whenever you're in a room, you're there because you should be. For whatever that reason is.
Right.
Like, if you fail at whatever you're doing, that's okay. But like, you're supposed to be in that room, right? And I think that just kind of calms me down, which is, you know, a way to just kind of look at everything for face value and just be like, okay, I'm supposed to be here. Okay, let's get the noise out of my brain.
Right.
Now let me focus on the task at hand.
Yep.
Yeah. So
that's an important lesson, and it's that there's a humility in that too. You're not taken to the extreme of course I should be here.
No, it's not like that.
Right.
It's you have to prove yourself.
But I like what you said. If you hear that voice of doubt, that's normal. Like, that's okay.
It's totally normal, and that just means you're about to do something cool.
Right. You're pushing yourself.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Because that's otherwise how are you supposed to? Like, if everything was so easy and awesome, then everybody would do it. It's just the people that just go, oh, this is uncomfortable. Like, cool, great. That means something's over there.
Yep. We'll take the first student's question.
So my question is, how do you envision the future of music to be like? And do you think that radio will ever be replaced, or will there be new methods of listening?
So how the future of music, and will radio be replaced, and if so, how?
The interesting thing is yes, I think so. You have some countries now that, like Norway, who are phasing out terrestrial radio. So they're one of the first countries to start to do that in place for satellite and, you know, streaming and such. So it's hard to really think about that, you know, because radio is such an important part of our culture, and to take it away, I don't know if people are going to totally take it away. It'll be there, but...
well, I think it's still like 93% of Americans listen to radio every day.
Right. So how do you change those habits? And I think that as younger people become more the populace, then those habits will, you know, eventually start phasing out the older habits.
Right.
I think.
Well, people thought that TV would be around forever, and now.
Right.
TV what?
Yeah, exactly. So I think as far as the future of music, terrestrial radio I think will decline, and I think that I mean, I'm a big believer with what's happening with Amazon Alexa right now and Alexa skills and stuff like that. So I think that's really where.
So how do you think, let's talk about that for a second. So how do you think Alexa, you know, artificial intelligence, big data, all that stuff, so sort of like Pandora personalized,
Sure.
how is that going to impact
it is impacting now. It's not even like Will or whatever.
How are you seeing it as an industry?
Well, the data for that is, it's funny. It's the songs that are played the most on Spotify via Alexa are songs to help you study, songs to help you relax. It's all the passive music that's helping a situation, like mood music and stuff like that. There's a huge spike in that right now. So before, you would think of music as, top 40 radio, whatever, these hits and stuff like that, when actually now, since music is it's so much easier to access, that people are, adding their Alexa system in their home and listening to more music in certain situations. So it's sort of allowing the music industry to look at these genres of like study music and stuff like that and really take it seriously.
I mean, if you think back to Pandora, it seems archaic now, but just the fact you could thumbs up and thumbs down music. Can you imagine if you told a record executive in the 60s like that would be possible? I mean, it's like Nirvana. Like, exactly what that person wants.
Yeah. It's unbelievable. It's changing everything.
Yeah.
It's changing where the business is becoming more consumer driven than
And I always tell my students and everyone watching this around the world, like that this is another example of the hummingbird effect. Like, think about okay, John's up here saying this is happening. What are the secondary and tertiary things that will happen because of that? And how can I jump on that bandwagon, not the main bandwagon? I'm not going to create the next Alexa, but what else could I come up with?
As far as like a hardware device, you're saying?
Hardware, software. I mean, just how is that going to impact our daily lives?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me as a creative person, the thing that's really exciting is thinking about Alexa playlists for home environments as a format, rather than thinking of it as an album. It's like 30 songs to help get you through the day or whatever. And I think that as a creative focal point on creating something for that demand is really, it's just going to start creating all these different pockets of creative options for artists, right?
I was going to say, how are artists reacting to that now?
They're slow. They're slow because they are still self-centric, right? They still think it's about them, it's about their performance, and they think about it. And it is a lot. I mean, of course it is, but playlists are more popular now. There's payola now, and I shouldn't say this out loud, but yeah, there's a lot.
They don't know what that means.
No, but it's like there's a lot of really crazy parts to like playlisting that's just a driving factor for the music industry. It's like, oh, are you on this playlist?
It makes sense. If Spotify puts you on one of their playlists, you're gonna get a lot of downloads.
Like, I'm on this, and there's like 100, there's 5 million people looking at it. I think that's really powerful.
Yep. Well, you mentioned Norway. I was going to ask you about that, so let's talk about that for a second. That promotional video was really well done. Like, you look like a rock star. Like,
it was so bizarre.
What happened there? Like, what was the impetus?
What was that? What was that? I'm still trying to figure it out.
And how did that impact your music?
It was unbelievable. It was literally.
Maybe we should explain a little bit what.
Sure. So there was a video that I did that it's on my website, archwoodmusic.com. I'll do a shameless plug, but. So it's this video for 3 minutes of me riding around like Norwegian, like Norway, and on I think I was on like a snowmobile and like an ice castle, like the most like ridiculous things, and it was about me making music in Norway, right? So, and it was shot like incredible.
It was like really well done.
Yeah, it was like I mean, red cameras, like beautiful like scenes. Privileged to be on that, obviously. It's insane. But it just came about because a friend of mine said, who was Norwegian, said, hey, a friend of mine owns a TV production or a video production company, and they just have a client. They have a client that's the Norwegian government, and they want to figure out ways to bring tourism to Norway in the wintertime. And they're looking for people to score the videos. It's like a tourism video, right? So I was like, oh, cool, that sounds awesome. Like, just that as itself, yeah, sure, we'll score that. So let me put you in contact. And I asked the guy, I said, okay, you just want it to be scored, right? He's like, yeah, but send me a proposal of what you think should be done. So I sat there and I thought to myself, wouldn't it be cool if someone went there instead of like scoring it like someone traditionally would with like software instruments and stuff that's everybody has, make a score about it that's only using sound from that region. And so I don't know if anybody here are fans of like Bjork, or there's a lot of, like Bjork is a recording artist that was doing found sounds in like the 2000s that I was like pretty influenced by. So, you know, I think as selfishly, I always wanted to do something like that. So, you know, I pitched the idea, did a full proposal about, hey, why don't I go there? Why don't I go to the ice cave and like use a microphone and record the reverb of the ice cave and use that as part of the score, and they liked it. And that was like 6 months of trying to figure out, you know, if this was real or not. Is this really going to happen? And then I saw the plane tickets came in, and I was like, oh, this is real. This is like, but the joke was that I didn't realize that I was going to be the main guy. I thought I was going there to just do the found sound recording and create the score, and I was the audio guy. There's the video guy and stuff like that.
They'd have
I showed up and they're like,
musician or something.
they showed up. They're like, "Are you good on camera?" And I was like, "Yeah, I've done interviews before. Like, I'm okay." They're like, "Okay, cool. Like, this is about you." I was like, "What?" I swear. And I was like, so they're giving, there were lines that they gave me, and I was just botching it. I was like, I have no experience with that. And so it ended up being like, they took out a lot of the crazy parts, obviously, but it ended up being a really cool piece of just like me showing up there with a laptop, going around, traveling, seeing like beautiful parts of the country, and then assimilating all that content and bringing it home and making music. And I think like, most of the music was recorded there. There was some stuff like that wasn't, but I think for the most part it was sounds captured.
No, it was well done, and it got that ultimate message across, which was promoting, but not in a cheesy, like, here we go again kind of way.
Yeah, the guys were just top notch, a great agency out there. I actually became friends with them, and like really, really cool experience. And I mean, the metrics from the promotional video proved, you know, it was a success, so everybody was happy.
I am not surprised.
It was great.
And then, you know, that came about because of your network, a friend, conversation, and you followed up on it. That's so often, that's kind of opportunity knocking in a way. Maybe not knocking that loud, but somebody mentioned something and you could have just blown that off and been like, whatever.
I almost did. I actually almost did. I almost was like, I was like, is this, I just didn't know if it was real. That's really what it was. And it was, and I think that's a good point that people can pay attention to, is like, maybe it's to a fault sometimes, but like when things come in, I usually take things seriously, and I respond and say, well, you know, what's the worst thing that's going to happen if I send a proposal out? Like they just don't, and this worked. And I was like, I almost passed on it because it was a lot of work to write something like that. Yeah,
for sure. And I invite a lot of people. I get the pleasure and the privilege to interview a lot of interesting people. And you just got back to me immediately and said, yes. I love that, right? I just love that you were just like, yes, I'll do it. No drama. And this was like 6 months ago.
Yeah.
You were like, I'll be there. Yeah. And then when I reached out to you, I don't know, a month ago, you were like, yep, on the calendar, I'll be there. And I just love that in people. And I think successful people do that. They don't flake. They don't go, now I'm in Europe or whatever.
You know, we met on a panel, I think, and I thought, I was like, you're a really nice guy. And I think that like you have I mean, the fact that you do this, the fact that you're sharing all this stuff with the, you know, with the students, I think is a really admirable thing. And I think that like, I think at heart, maybe I connected on that level. And I think like, I just like to do stuff. Like I like to put myself in situations that I've never spoken in front of, you know, this many people all at once about this subject, but why not?
And it's going to get a bunch of views too online. But I call it being a yes. I call it being a yes. Like sometimes it's just great to be a yes. Somebody says, hey, why don't we go do this? Yep, I'm in. Because if you let that filter go down, there's always 50 reasons why you should say no.
Yeah, there's a lot of no's, but like you gotta, like there's a lot of, you know, things that you just can tell might waste your time. But, but I think like as a whole, when opportunities come up.
Especially when it's a chance to give back. And
100%.
Yeah. Awesome. So I'm appreciative.
Yeah, no, thank you.
So while working with artists like Eminem, who can often be considered controversial, did you ever second guess the opportunity to work with him, or did you just instantly say yes, like John was
Say yes.
just saying?
Say yes. Look, I mean, when you have your own business, you got to look at your bottom line, obviously, and it's a paid opportunity, and you just go, cool. I think the idea of dealing with someone controversial, and we spoke about this, I think, in an earlier class, but unless it's someone that really stands for something that you really are against, I think it's an art form, what he does, and I think that like people are going to love it and people are going to hate it, and I think that's the point, right? So in that situation, as long as he's not doing something I totally don't believe in, I think I don't ever really think about the repercussions of it's a job and it's a good opportunity and gets my name out there, and it's something that.
Yeah, I think that's good advice, even not in the music business, but any business where you align yourself with people. You got to make sure that you're not compromising your own.
You don't want to compromise your
values or
value, integrity, or
yeah.
anything like that. Absolutely, you got to take account of that. But I think, it's Eminem. It was an opportunity that came through, and I just was like, yeah, that sounds cool.
I remember seeing an interview with him where he said his hits, the ones that have gotten the most airplay. He's like, I usually don't like those songs when we first do. He's like, I just think they're stupid, silly songs. And then there'll be the ones I love are the ones that nobody really wants to play.
Typical story.
Did you see that in the studio? Or is it like the things that were throwaways ended up being, well, not throwaways, but
for that record?
Yeah.
Yeah. It was pretty crazy. It was a type of situation where I saw it and I was like, wow. And I sat there I worked on the project with a really talented producer as well, and we sat there and just kind of looked at each other and we're like, he's got to do that again. And we're like, whoa, how are we in this situation where we got to tell this guy to do it again?
Right.
So, yeah.
So like Frank Sinatra with one take.
Yeah, it's rare that happens. Yeah.
That's funny. Well, we have in this audience we have a student that I introduced you to. You were very helpful with and very generous with your time. He's got millions of views on Spotify, millions of downloads, I guess, or streams or whatever. What kind of advice do you give? So thank you for interacting with him. What kind of advice do you give to young people like that are trying to figure out the playlist, are trying to break in? We don't have the big major labels anymore.
Right. He's doing what he's supposed to be doing, is trying to figure it out.
Right.
That's the joke, is that the technology is changing so much all the time. Justin Bieber was found on YouTube years ago, but that may not be the platform today, right? So you got to figure out what works for you, what your audience responds to. If your audience is responding to you having behind the scenes stories on Snapchat because they like you as a personality, then do that. But if they're not responding, they're responding to you making beautiful artistic records that are just timeless and they're buying it on vinyl, do that. But you just got to keep throwing the lines out there until something responds back to you and you go, oh wow, like people, people like that. People like what I'm doing. So
I had Mike Falzone last year. He's a YouTube star, he's a musician, comedian, and he was saying something similar where it can be frustrating because it could be Vine, right? You could get like all these Vine followers, and then Vine goes away. You're like, whoa, wait a minute, or MySpace or something.
Totally.
But if you don't do that, if you don't take the risk of building a following that might go away, then you're never going to get a following.
Right. That's why right now I think the game is diversification, which is not putting all your eggs into a Vine or putting it into just your Spotify music. You also have, social media channels and stuff like that. Make sure your live performances are awesome. I think that doesn't hurt. Just remember that, okay? Like that's first and foremost, just put on a great show.
Well, I remember like Troy, when I interviewed him, he said he calls her Gaga. He's like, Gaga outworked everybody.
Of course.
And she did 4 or 5 shows a night.
Yeah.
And people, that following just built. It was a sort of organic following of people that would then follow her from gig to gig to gig, even in that same evening. So so you gotta deliver live.
You gotta really make it an event that somebody wants to go to.
Yep.
Right? It's such a simple concept, but people forget about it,
That's hard to do.
Yeah.
It's hard to do every night.
Over and over again. Oh yeah. I mean, that's why backed out of being a live performer a long time ago. I was just like, that's not my specialty. Yeah.
Groundhog Day every night.
Yeah.
We'll take the next student's question.
Hi. When you were starting up your company, what did you do to receive recognition and trust from like big companies and
Partnerly?
Excuse me?
Yeah,
From-
so
from
we'll segue a little bit to Partnerly. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And also, what was like the main factor that drove your company to grow and beat your competition or attract big companies to come to your company?
I think Partnerly was really interesting because that was me sitting down and realizing like there's certain parts of the system that are broken, obviously, and wanting to try to fix something.
Right.
But I didn't have as much credibility. I mean, I had been working on some corporate projects for licensing, music licensing, but as far as brand partnerships, I wasn't as much in that space, and so I had to find a partner. I found a business partner that had more experience in that world, and we had a lot of cups of coffee, and just week after week until, and we were doing some projects on the side together, working on some business together, and then all of a sudden we're like, why don't we start something?
Exactly.
I was like, why? And I said to him, I was like, would you do this? And I was the type of person that I had been grilled since I was a youngster to like, it's all about ownership. It's all about owning your own business. My parents were entrepreneurs. My dad owns his own business. Like everyone in my family is always like that. So, and the idea of just being like, hey, we're going to do this together was always taught to me as something that was extraordinarily risky. But I think I have a better gauge than most on when to know when somebody is like, has like good values, and off the top, I mean, it's hard to really know, but I think I have a little bit of a radar.
But you also curated that friendship, right? So you didn't just jump into a relationship.
No.
You guys
I
talked, spent time together, and then worked on some side projects.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a lot like romantic relationship in that regard, where you really have to test that relationship.
Right.
So with a few trials and tribulations and make
100%.
sure that it's working. And
on a small little minimal level,
Right.
like, hey, if I work on this project with you and this is coming to, like, how does that work business wise? And and it was always a positive experience. So I looked at what I lacked, and I was like, look, I can't do this. This is an idea that I have. I can bring this to the table, and then sort of came to an agreement with him. And with that, we were able to leverage a lot of both of our experience to do what we're doing now.
And it's really hard to be a sole founder at a tech company. I work with a few. It's really hard. So
oh my gosh,
get a co-founder. It's night and day, right? Can you imagine the problem? It's like a
There's
problem
no
shared is a problem half, right? It's like you want to share those problems.
There's no way I could have done this on my own. There's absolutely no way. It's so difficult, and not even just from a technical standpoint. It's just you're sharing the workload, but it's also like when things get, it's just camaraderie, like just getting yourself through like a problem and just talking about it.
Emotional ups and downs, right? The highs are high, the lows are lower.
Yeah.
Remember, to use a music analogy, Harrison used to say, I don't know how Elvis did it. Right?
Yeah.
'Cause Elvis was alone, whereas at least the Beatles had each other to complain to.
Right. And I remember like I had been alone. I had been producing records on my own and signed as my own entity for a while, and I hit a wall where I was just like, I can't do this anymore. Like I need help, and I need to find someone that I can kind of start thinking bigger with than just.
So how did you guys come together?
I met him at a songwriting session through a company called Pulse, and we were writing some music together, and it was sort of like the music was cool, and I was just like I didn't really think about it at the time, and I was like, this guy seems like he knows. He seemed more like business oriented than just a music guy, just a musician. So I sort of kept it in my back pocket and just kind of stayed in touch for over a year, I think, on just like asking just like literally questions about the brand space because I was interested in it, but I didn't know where I would land if that was something that I wanted to get into. Right. And so we just kind of had like an organic, friendship. Yeah. That we just kind of.
I always think the romantic relationships often are best if they start out as friendships. Like you have that time to just be friends, and then it involves something else. It kind of sounds like you did that too on a sort of like a different scale, where you had that slow burn relationship where you were just staying in touch and then you
Yeah.
ended up doing something together?
Yeah, totally. It was very much so like that.
So I'm going to get the next student's question in a second, but let me ask you, going back to the very well-known people that you've worked with.
Sure.
There's a lot of students, not the majority, but certainly a number of students that think fame is something they want.
Yeah.
And whether it's fame at like an M&M or it's just fame in their industry or they want notoriety.
Mm-hmm.
So you've seen it. Do you have any thoughts from the inside of maybe, it's okay to aspire to that, but maybe a couple words of warning, or do you think they should just go for it? And
Fame is, it's crazy. I think the fundamental thing to ask yourself is to ask yourself, why do you want fame, right? And it's a really deep question, but you just got to ask yourself, why do you want? Oh, well, because I want to be famous. Okay, well, why do you want to be famous? Well, because I want notoriety. I want to be known for something. I want to have a place. I want to have a mark here. Why?
right. Yeah, just keep asking
Why? Just
Yeah.
like an old samurai warrior or something. Like, ask yourself why. Like, keep asking, and then you're ultimately probably going to come up with like something that you don't want to deal with.
Right.
Like
Right.
you're just like, oh, this is too much, or you're just going to do it because this is the only thing I know how to do, or that I can do. It's literally probably can do, right? So just make sure you ask yourself why, and because in that question you might find something else that is more realistic
Yep.
than this idea of like being a celebrity or the idea of being famous, or because if all you need to make yourself happy is just a nice car and some steady income, well, like there are jobs that will provide that. You know what I mean? Like you don't have to aspire to this celebrity factor. Now, if your answer is that because you want to impact people's lives, okay, well, what do you want to do to impact people's lives? Like, what are you trying to say? What message are you trying to spread? And just like, I think anything positive is good. I think,
Right. But then you may find there's other ways besides, let's face it, not that many people make that level of fame.
Right.
It's a pretty high bar.
Right.
So are there other ways without compromising on your life that you can have a similar impact without playing the Super Bowl or something?
Yeah, and I think that's what's so awesome about the music industry now is that it's sort of the middleman's or the middle person's game now, which is you're able to, if you have a decent head on your shoulders and you can understand business as well as music, you can create a more sustainable lifestyle for what you want to do rather than shooting for what corporations think you should be doing, right? So they're two things, and I think we're fortunate to be living in a time now that you can actually do that versus it was you got to get a record deal, you got to do this, you got to make 3 records before you
make a dime,
and then you can do whatever you want. Let's look at look at the history of the record industry. It's atrocious.
Yep, it is.
In a lot of ways.
Well, everyone in this room has their own worldwide radio station, right? They can broadcast anything they want to the world. Just make it compelling and interesting.
Right.
And what I always remind my students too is if money and fame made people happy, we wouldn't have all these broken down rich celebrities, right? It just doesn't make you happy. So you got to ask yourself not only why do I want to be famous, but what's really going to make me happy?
What's going to make you happy? What skills do you have that can get you there? What are you good at?
Yep.
Basic stuff, but I think a lot of people get sort of lost because they don't know.
And they see the glamour, right?
Of course,
Our society promotes that glamour.
Of course, it's totally shoved down everybody's throat.
Right.
It's like this is how it should be.
Right. You should aspire to this.
You should do this. You should be this, and it's the shoulds.
Right.
It's not good.
We'll take your question.
Hi. What was your vision in making Partnerly, and how will you be able to catch up to the ever-changing technological advances?
The vision was really just me sitting there saying, like, there's, U.S. copyright law is broken for creatives, and it's really hard to hold people accountable and pay out royalties to creative writers. So I was in like the writer's game for a while. And I was seeing royalties diminish, and the typical writer that was like, oh, what's happening? Like, what's going on? You know, are they going to fix it? Are they going to fix it?
They, yeah.
Are they going to fix
Who's
it?
they?
Are they going to fix it? Like,
Right.
when's ASCAP going to figure it out? When's my publisher? You know, when are they going to, like, when's their system going to be more accountable? And there was just a lot of conversations like that where, you know, I knew the reality of it, but I still would have some of those conversations.
Sure.
But then I just sat back and I was like, okay, I'm a reasonably intelligent person, I would think. Like, what if, a crazy idea, what if there was another way to get revenue in the music business that isn't touring or isn't
Merch.
yeah, or isn't merch or isn't this? Well, what would that be? So I sort of did a survey and I was like, oh, there's a lot of people making money in brand partnerships. And, you know, and then I started looking at other industries, sports, you know, race car, NASCAR, stuff like that, where sponsorship is not really like looked down upon. It's
Right.
actually embraced.
Yeah.
And if you take a look at most art in general, art has always been supported, financed by
Patrons.
patrons, the church,
Yeah.
like, you know, stuff
Yeah.
like that. So what's the harm versus like where I would used to look at, you know, Nike doing a deal with someone. I think that whole idea is starting to shift. So the idea was really just saying, well, what if that became a major player revenue source for creative individuals, and how can that happen? And so I just sort of really thought about that problem and potential for a while, and then thought about, you know, I was working over with Red Bull, for example. A friend of mine was there, and I remember I saw this whole idea about Red Bull creating music, but there's no bottom line. Like, it's just part of their marketing budget. And I was just it was so interesting to me that they were able to support something artistic, and there's no like, oh, you have to sell 1 million records for us to keep our jobs.
Right, right.
So I was like, why can't every other company do that? So that was the inception on that.
Can you talk about some of the, I know some of this is still in the works, so I don't want you to disclose anything
That's okay.
confidential, but can you talk about any specific artists and brands that you brought together, and what did the artists feel like they were getting out of it, other than obviously they're getting a payday, but
Yeah.
how do you deal with that, I'm an artist kind of?
A lot of artists sort of look at it and are a little skeptical because, first of all, they're used to dealing with the traditional music industry where they're getting screwed.
Yeah.
So they sort of look at you just like,
Right, here we go again.
okay. But I made sure that like every opportunity I completely over deliver, like 300% for the artist, because I want the reputation of like being on their team, because I really am. I mean, I really am pro creator. So I was like, well, you know, why can't it be like this? And then so some of the artists that I work with, like, would walk into an opportunity with Forever 21 or Whole Foods Market and see that they would get exposure via the brand's social media channels. They get custom places for merch, specific areas. I think a lot of the times it's a social media play, just pivoting off of people's audiences. So rather than just having radio or their playlists or their fans, they get exposed to new markets.
And do they also get new demo, like a potentially new demographic?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, you have people. I've had some artists that we're doing some activations for Whole Foods, which was bringing artists in to literally play a grocery store.
Wow.
And people are like, people were criticizing me forever. Like, why are you doing? And I was going down downtown Whole Foods and just working with their team and being like, let's bring amazing talent to play in a grocery store, right? And the idea was that they have a restaurant and bar. It's not just like they're in the canned food aisle, but they're at a restaurant bar concept that they're trying to promote. And so you would have these bands that would come through and just be like playing loud, awesome music, and people grocery shopping and being like, what is this? And so by I think the third month that we were doing it, there was just people all around downtown coming into the Whole Foods Market.
Wow.
And they're like, this is great. This is great music. I'm like, well, yeah, this is not your neighborhood, bar band. This is like someone from a major label that's coming in, that's trusting me, that's like that this is a good opportunity, doing a social media play behind Whole Foods to make sure that they're like a co-branded content. And like, so artists are, after an experience like that, they were like, wow, this is really cool. This is really interesting. They have great food, But
Yeah, and again, it's a
like
good product, a good brand. They're not raping and pillaging the world. And so when does it work such that Whole Foods basically says, hey, John, we have a budget, you know the talent, make the budget work within the talent, and here are the different marketing venues? Yeah,
and then they usually would have some sort of idea as far as what they like, what has worked within their stores already, and we sort of we'd go back and forth and stuff like that. So and try to find the right fit for sure.
So what about some of the other brands? So I don't know if you've done Partnerly has been working with Converse, or if that was before.
Yeah, that's
or American Airlines.
Converse and American Airlines was licensing custom music for them, so that's a little bit more on the traditional side of things. Yep. Forever 21 was a really big deal for us. That was working with like doing the F21X Music brand. So that's like a blog where where they promote artists, and then like the artists will link to their stores to buy products. And so what's cool is like after that campaign, for example, like H&M, their competitor, the clothing store, they spent $1 million at Coachella. Like, and I, saying this out loud, but they spent $1 million at Coachella and to be promoted. Forever 21 came in and created their F21X Music tab, and started partnering with artists to say, hey, let me get on our site, let me help, blast us out at Coachella, having micro influencer plays with like hundreds of different artists to promote Forever 21 during Coachella. 2016 Coachella, or their hashtag was the #1 most engaged hashtag during Coachella.
Nice.
And they didn't put up the $1 million.
Right.
So there's all these cool things that are happening, like exposure-wise for these artists, and they are jumping at it because it's great visibility.
Huh. That's very cool.
Yeah.
Let's get another student's question.
So you mentioned previously that you were involved with the creative and music field since a young age, but was there ever a moment where you kind of second-guessed your career path? And if so...
Yesterday.
All the time.
And if so, was there like a specific moment that kept you going and like helped you jump over that hurdle?
Yeah, I mean, there's been many times that I was making music that it wasn't going anywhere, and I like hundreds and hundreds of ideas that just would sort of sit by the wayside, and I think that I had to let certain things fizzle out and get to a really like lonely place for a period of time, for me to realize that I need to change my team. I need to change the people that are around me right now because this isn't working. And like really sitting back and just having the self-confidence to say like, okay, I've been doing this for a long time. People like what I do. Maybe I just need to go and find other people that are more supportive and start being more proactive like that. And that was a big game changer for me.
It's hard, because we're entrepreneurs typically are passionate people.
Yeah.
We form strong bonds with people and have strong relationships, but sometimes it is appropriate to move on. You change the jazz band, right? You're in the same jazz band too long.
Just like let's get some new blood in here.
Get a new drummer.
Get a new drummer. That sax player's been playing way too long.
Yeah, right. Let's go back to the sort of playing off the Coachella story with Forever 21. You mentioned that metric of the hashtag, and what are some of the other metrics you're looking at? Like, I guess it's twofold, right? So the bands, you're pitching a band, they're going, wait, what? Whole what? I'm not sure about that. So you're pitching them a certain set of metrics of success. What are you pitching? I'd like to hear what those are. And then what are you pitching to Whole Foods? Like, how does Whole Foods come back and say, John, you killed it, or John, we need to work on this?
So usually on the brand side, they come to us with like, key points for us to reach and key goals, app downloads, people visiting in store, people like retweeting.
So how do they do the store visits? Are they doing that through, are they physically counting? Are they just saying, the store was full? I mean, do they actually try to?
They do it, like for Whole Foods, it was based on the bar, based on purchases
Okay,
at the bar,
okay,
like a
right.
typical,
Yep.
you know,
Like a club.
like a club, but
Yep.
they're taking a crack at
I just
it.
wondered, are they like looking at phones? Because, you know, they have now these
Right.
transponders in stores that are actually tracking people coming in.
They're not, but other brands, you know, definitely are a little bit more hands-on with technology. They were
Right.
not, but I think most of the other clients we've had are usually like companies that have like apps they want to download or products they want to sell. So based on, you know, typical,
Right.
you know, this campaign that we did sold X number of units, and this was the result on it.
So they're holding you to a sort of a traditional marketing ROI,
100%,
right?
yeah.
Okay, which is good, because otherwise it's just smoke and mirrors and hand waving and the bar was full.
Right,
Like-
right, yeah. No, there's definitely goals for this. These are not the days of the budgets of just show up and,
Right.
you know,
right.
I don't think people don't have that as much anymore.
Well, everything can be measured now,
Yeah.
so
Yeah, so
people want to
everything's-
measure it.
Yeah, everybody wants it measured. Everybody wants it quantified.
What about on the band side? So are they just looking for more followers? How do they, like if I had a good gig at Whole Foods, how would I judge that?
I mean, like for example, we had a guy play that showed up, you know, was happy to play for the budget that we had. Definitely did it as a favor, you know. Showed up with a bunch of vinyl to sell,
Oh,
and
okay.
and there was such a good experience that the manager bought all of his
Oh, you're
merch
kidding.
and just gave it out to everybody at the store.
Oh, that's cool.
So like he's walking out, you know,
Yeah.
to get bought out of all your
Yeah.
merch is really cool.
Sure.
So that's, you know, a couple $1,000s extra. That's or more.
Straight
yeah.
to the bottom line for them, or
Yeah.
close to
So
it.
so when things like that happen, it's not every time,
Sure.
but there are opportunities that happen like that, and
Yep.
all of a sudden they'll get a bunch of followers on their social media because somebody you know,
Right.
connected them on a campaign. Yeah, there's all sorts of. Sometimes artists honestly just want to be affiliated with a brand because they think it's cool and it'll help their visibility. We worked with T.I. with Ford, and he just wanted to be associated with Ford really bad because it would help his demographic.
Right.
So
And spread his demographic.
yeah.
Okay. We have time for one more student question.
When a business is first starting out, it can be kind of difficult to like establish a credibility. But what did you do to get your name out there and close deals with these big companies like Salesforce and American Airlines?
I mean, to close those types of deals, that was a combination of my partner and I, mostly a lot of my partner who had some of these existing relationships that we started cultivating together. But are you asking more early on? Early on, I worked for free all the time,
Yeah.
like all the time. And I remember when I went to Berkeley, you're allowed an internship course, right? And then I took my internship at a music publishing company and I burnt it down. I was like, this isn't for me. And I was like, well, now what?
Right. Right.
So I went to Santa Barbara City and I got,
Oh, really?
yeah. So that's why I love Santa Barbara. So I have a soft spot because I went to Santa Barbara City and I said, well, how can I enroll in your internship program and not have to pay like a full like college tuition? And it just so happened that they were the only school in like the LA area that I could just pay the $65 or $85 to take the
Wow.
internship. So I shouldn't tell you this, but
Go ahead.
so I would take the course, I would pay for it, and then I showed up to another internship, and then I just never showed up to class. But like,
What was the internship, can you say?
I worked for a DJ producer, I worked for Atlantic, I worked for a host of a bunch of companies that I just, I worked for free. And it was just until I found something that made sense for me, and then those relationships that I built,
Exactly.
I mean, it's really, it's the book that everybody teaches, but
right.
so many of my relationships came from those early intern years of just people that were doing the same thing, and all of a sudden they get in a position and they remember me.
Yep.
It's a classic story. So yeah.
Yep. They give you a helping hand up.
Yeah.
So it's every industry, and this probably doesn't seem to be the case when you're sitting in this classroom, but when you get out there, every industry, no matter how big it is small. it's all the same people.
Yeah.
Like I would basically see the same people at trade shows and things.
Yeah.
And people talk, and if you do right by people, as you obviously did, you do a good job, you over-deliver. Over time, opportunities unfold, and they remember you, and they pick up the phone, or if you've been good about keeping in touch with them. It's about building that network. Every single relationship, you never know if that's the one that's going to lead to...
That's it. I mean, I was at Atlantic, I was an intern, and a friend of mine was an incredible piano player. He just moved to LA, and T.I. was working on an album, and the A&R said, "You know any good keyboard players?" I said, "Yeah, this guy." And so I got him to play. I was an intern.
That's awesome.
And then he had a platinum plaque. And like, it's just like, that is like, there's no reward for, there's nothing for me to gain here. I could have, and a lot of people might have tried to leverage something, but it's just like, you make that happen, and hopefully down the road,
it'll come back
something comes back to you, you know? So
I firmly believe that. If you do good by others, it comes back to you in ways you'll never, you can't predict, but it always comes
no
back.
idea, but
It always does.
Yeah.
So you came here, we appreciate it. This is going to come back to you as well.
This is awesome.
Thanks, John.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.